it's easier to fix systems and processes than it is to fix people. And that's where the big bang for the buck is.
Hey, everybody. This is Ethan Nash. Welcome back to the Managing with Mind and Heart podcast. Thanks for tuning in. And with me, as is usual, we got Mr. Mike Nash here.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Ethan. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good. Well, you know what? I've been thinking about role clarity, task clarity, and how easy it is for organizations or departments to just get all tied up in knots when people don't know what people's roles are, right?
That's for sure.
I want to tell you a story. Maybe you can kind of help untie the knot here. The organization I was working with a few years ago, there were 6 employees that were tasked with creating a specific process. And these were 3 employees from sales and 3 from product management. And their job was, the 6 of them, was to improve this internal process that impacted both of these departments. These were generally high-performing employees. There wasn't any real problems with these employees in general. But man, it did not work out. This group, these 6 people that are on this committee, man, there was blaming and bickering and frustration, and people weren't following through, and they did not accomplish their goal. And what was frustrating for the managers that I was talking to about this was they unfortunately had a lot of, I'll just call them judgments about the problem. And the problem was basically, according to the managers, it was these 6 employees' EQ. They just didn't know how to work with each other, right? And so I want to throw that situation at you, Ethan, and say, let's say that in that case, we really know because of our magic powers that this problem was not created because these were 6 immature humans. What else could have contributed to this problem? What else could have even caused this mess other than humans that don't know how to get along with each other?
Well, there could be a variety of reasons, but if I'm making my best guess based on pattern recognition, I think it would have to do with role clarity. Who's responsible for what? Who's in charge of what? Like a lot of the managers we work with, we're trained in systems thinking and recognizing that most performance issues are not a result of something that's wrong with the individuals, but is something that is usually needing to be adjusted within the system around the individuals. In this case, role clarity is part of the system that allows performers to perform.
I don't know if we have time for this, but I'm going to take issue with what you said just a tiny bit. And we
Good.
can bookmark this maybe. Actually, we should really bookmark this for another conversation. I don't think most problems are based on organizational gaps. I don't know what percentage, but my gut level tells me that probably half the problems are people, but the other half are organizational factors that trickle down and impact the people. The problem, of course, is that managers tend to always think it's the people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, I don't want to squabble over the exact amount. There is actually some research, and I wanted to pull it up right now just to prove to you I'm not BSing you. But no, I mean, this was. I'll find it eventually. It doesn't really matter. But what I came to understand is that most of the time performance issues, and they put it at 70%, has to do with the result of something going on in the environment rather than what is going on with an individual, right? So we tend to look at somebody's motives, skills, capabilities, but most of the time, not always, most of the time, it is the environment, unclear expectations, for example, incentive systems that are misaligned,
Hmm.
management skills that are not present that allowed this person to perform well. And so, you know, we can,
Here's where I think we're
yeah,
coming together on that, because I think I mean, I agree with that. I've read those things before. I think the way I look at it is, let's say 70 or 80% of it has a root cause the way you've just described. That's coupled then with employees' level of EQ and kind of how they handle that, in a sense. So that can exacerbate
sure,
and add to it. So, but that's not what we're talking about today.
sure. But I mean, like the punchline is it's easier to fix systems than it is to fix people, right? And because
Yes.
that's usually where the problems at least stem from.
Yes, and you're right. It's easier to fix systems and processes than it is to fix people, and that's where the big bang for the buck is. And in this case, we have 6 employees who function well in general, but suddenly they're not. And so the clue is, yeah, let's
Mm.
look up at the system. Now, the managers that I was working with, of course, I don't mean of course, I shouldn't say that, but they weren't looking at the system, because I don't think that's intuitively what we tend to do when we have employees who are, quote, misbehaving. So we
Right.
kind of get tricked or fooled into thinking, well, what's right in my face must be the problem. Now, in this case, you're right. It was role clarity, but it's a really specific, and this won't take us long to get into. It's real simple, but it's this really surprisingly simple concept called single point accountability. We call it SPA for short,
Hmm.
single point accountability. The basic problem in that particular case was that nobody had been assigned SPA. And it doesn't always work out this beautifully. When we intervened and added SPA to that situation, it like immediately fixed the problem
Hmm.
in that organization.
So what was probably going on in the scenario that you painted is there wasn't a clear who is single point of accountability. And so it wasn't clear about, hey, who do I go to for what? Who's giving status updates? Who do I go for information? Who's responsible for grabbing this and that? It's just like it's kind of a free for all, which creates what will appear on the surface to be, oh, emotional intelligence issues. These people, are just arguing and things like that, right?
Yeah, because all these 6 people, they all had a stake in the outcome, and there was actually some competing interests going on because they were from 2 different departments and they have limited time and limited resources. And so their solution really needed to be collaborative. But nobody had been given, for example, when you kind of break SPA down, nobody had given the role of air traffic controller. Like just the basic role of facilitating those meetings. Just even that.
Mm.
Who's going to kind of be the one who facilitates these conversations, who actually calls the meeting, who's going to be the person who, it's the same person, right, who figures out who's going to summarize at the end of our meetings, whether it's them or somebody else. I think you already said this one, but if I was not part of that group, if I was another manager, who would I go to? If I wanted to get a status update, who would reach out from that group to ask for help if they got stuck? It's not a person who's, becoming anyone's boss. That's the point
Right.
here. They haven't been made the manager of those people. They've been given a temporary role that's kind of like a project manager role, right, for that particular process.
Hmm. Yeah. Again, a simple in concept practice that can fix a whole lot of angst and issues going on. And a key piece that you're hinting at here is that SPA, single point of accountability, is not always the same thing as having 100% decision making autonomy or authority. Right? It all depends on the parameters that are set, either by the manager that's setting up the SPA in the group, or as you're building common commitments because you've created a committee or whatever to work on this. Hey, what does SPA look like here? How will we do decision making and things like that? Like, where do I have freedom to make decisions? What do I need to run by the group or you first? Right, what level of authority, is this? And so it's about being clear on the parameters when you set up that SPA.
That's key for that particular example. So the SPA that was selected, her name is Rachel, and that's her real name. Rachel, if you're listening,
Wow.
good job. Awesome. Awesome job, Rachel. Rachel became the SPA. And that didn't mean that she going into that group of 6 people, had extra authority in getting what she wants.
Right.
She didn't get to make the decision. But here's what's really cool. We provided two things were provided for Rachel that made it possible for her to succeed. And one of them was some skills, right? So, hey, let's talk about maybe a few facilitation skills, or,
Mm,
hey, how do you do consensus work? So giving her a little bit of that to equip her, right?
yeah.
And the second thing that was provided, which I'll let you speak to here, was sponsorship. Because we're not going to say to Rachel privately, Rachel, don't tell anyone,
Mhm.
but you're the SBA. What's going
Right.
to happen to poor Rachel when she gets thrown into the fire?
Right. She's gonna get thrown overboard. Mutiny.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, I obviously you're saying that, tongue in cheek. I think it happens unintentionally, where it's like, hey, you're SPA of the group.
Right.
So I'm the manager assigning somebody SPA, and I don't then sponsor it to the rest of that group. And by sponsorship, I'm not just talking about, I support you, Rachel. I support that you're SPA, right? I'm talking about, I am actually communicating directly with the rest of the group. Hey, here's what we've decided. Rachel here for the group is going to be SPA. And here's what this means. And here's what that doesn't mean. Right. Or it could simply be, depending on the level of skill and emotional intelligence in that group, it could also just be, Rachel's SPA. You all work together to figure out what the parameters look like for that. Right. So situationally.
You know what? Let me interrupt. You could also say to the group of 6, hey, why don't you decide on who's SPA?
Yep.
And then go from there.
Exactly. And that is the sponsorship in that scenario. You're sponsoring that there needs to be an SPA, essentially, without fully defining it. Good. Good. Any other nuances around SPA we should consider? I mean, I don't want to overcomplicate it because it's not complicated per se.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
It's actually pretty simple. I think I've seen a lot of organizations who get kind of halfway there, but if you could just remember, it's the air traffic controller, it's the person who kind of owns the process, but that doesn't mean they have authority. Keep that in mind, and then I would say provide some training if that's necessary in that role, and then lastly, provide some sponsorship.
yeah. Very good. Very good. And, I tend to think, and if you want to debate me on this again, since you're in that kind of mood, go for it. And I'll just pull out some data.
Yeah, you'll have some data to
Yes.
prove me wrong.
Yes, which I was frantically looking for in the background, but I haven't found it, but it's there. It's there, I promise. Yes. With SPA, I would think that most major task projects, job functions really should have an SPA. And of course, we can get into nuances of exactly what does and what doesn't need to have it. But if you think that it might need an SPA, just for clarity, you're probably right. is where I would go. Is where I'd go for that. And I don't know if you have any other more insightful, insightful ways to put that than I do.
Actually, you're absolutely right. And I think that here's the thing: if you have a task and it's just you, there's no need for SPA. But if there's people and if there's basically humans involved, more than one or two, I think it's time for SPA. Now, again, yeah, you're right. There's nuances, and it's not every single thing. But I'm rarely going to take a group of 4 or 5 people and give them a complicated task and not assign an SPA. I just think that's set up for problems that are unnecessary and sap our energy and our time.
Agreed. Very much agreed. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye. Hey, folks, wait. Don't go yet. Please, stay with me for 1 second here. I want to let you know about a couple cool little goodies that we have available for you. If you dig this podcast, you will probably also dig our Managing with Mind and Heart newsletter. This is a monthly newsletter where we share articles that we write about, hey, how to thrive as a manager, how to lead teams that are characterized by high morale, engagement, psychological safety, care and respect, collaboration, and high performance. You can sign up for this newsletter by texting the word leading to the number 66866. Additionally, you can go to our website and sign up for the newsletter there. Our website is www.nashconsulting.com. And of course, if you're not already aware, we have our cornerstone program for leaders and managers, and it is called Managing with Mind and Heart. Go figure. This program is something that we often bring into organizations to work with all their leaders on helping them get aligned and singing off the same sheet of music with best practice management skills and behaviors. We've brought this to hundreds of organizations at this point with really good results. And if you are not able or inclined to bring our program in-house, twice a year, in the spring and in the fall, we offer this 6-day Managing with Mind and Heart leadership development program online for anybody that would like to sign up and join us. To learn more about this online course and to register, you can go to our website. Once again, that's nashconsulting.com. Or send us an email at contact@nashconsulting.com. All right, that's all. That's it. See you later. Bye.